So we want to welcome everyone to our first community training for lead service line technical assistance program. We're really excited to be able to meet with you all today and thank everyone who's already gone in and filled out applications. We have those, about 60 something of them, and we will be starting to make assignments in the near future. Just so you know, this is being recorded. It will be on the lead service line technical assistance page, probably in the next 2 to 3 days for reference and also to share with other members in your community. Would really like to acknowledge our interagency partners that are joining us today. We have representatives from Commerce, DEQ, EPA, DNRC, and several other agencies that are working with us on this really important program. So the team that will be speaking to us today will be Cody Ferguson. He is our Community Montana Planning Coordinator, and he's going to share with us a little bit about the history of the interagency partnership that we're working with. Then Greg Montgomery from DEQ will talk with us and give us a brief overview of the lead service line requirements and the EPA updates. And then I'm going to go through our lead service line technical assistance landing page. Some of you may have already been on that. It gets changed pretty regularly. Actually, we just updated some new things yesterday. So we will kind of go through that quickly. And then Tina Salazar, our lead service line technical assistance specialist, she is going to go through the process of logging in and submitting an application for technical assistance if you have not done that already. So we are estimating that that's going to take us about probably 40 minutes, leaving us hopefully 15-20 minutes for questions at the end. You also feel free to submit questions in the chat, and we will get to those at the end if they haven't been answered. We're then willing to stay on as long as needed to answer any additional questions that anyone may have. So just be thinking about those things that you still maybe are wondering and have some burning desire to know the answers, and hopefully we will be able to answer those. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Cody Ferguson.
Sure, thanks, Sue. And I'm not sure if I can turn my camera on. It doesn't look like I can, so I can just be the talking box here. So my name is Cody Ferguson. I'm the Community Planning Program Manager with the Community EMT Division here at the Department of Commerce. That's a huge mouthful. And how it is that we got involved in this when going back to 2021, when Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act, the legislature had this large pot of money, part of which could be spent on water and wastewater infrastructure. And so we partnered with DNRC to provide technical assistance to communities to help them gain access to the ARPA water and wastewater funding that was available, either through competitive grants or through what were called minimum allocation grants. And so we put together this system where we brought on 10 engineering firms that we could kind of rapidly assign out to communities that needed help for 20 hours assistance, putting together, like identifying water and wastewater issues that might be ARPA eligible for funding, and then putting together applications for that funding. And so based on our experience there, when the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, sometimes referred to as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, passed a year later, and there was a large portion of money set aside for lead service line replacement and mitigation, we began talking with DEQ about the idea of whether or not we could use this model and if it would be useful for this lead service line initiative, right? And so we started to build this program. And so Sue and Tina and Greg will talk a lot more about the specifics of the program, but essentially what we've done is procured 16 or 17 service providers that we can assign out for up to 100 hours of assistance for water systems that serve under 10,000 users to conduct lead service line inventory, so inventorying those water systems for the existence of lead, and then put together, if the lead exists, put together plans to then apply for low interest loans, part of which would be forgiven through DEQ to get that source of lead finally removed out of the drinking water supply. And so that's our program. That's kind of how we got into it. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Sue and Tina and Greg.
Thanks, Cody. Let's see, Greg, if we can hear him.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Hi. Can you still see my screen?
No.
Yes. Well, not now.
Give me 1 second. I just popped out of there because I wanted to make sure I could promote Greg. There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you. So my name is Greg Montgomery. I'm with DEQ in the Public Water Supply Bureau, and I oversee the overall lead programs in the state. So the lead and copper rule, which includes just lead service line inventories, as well as the lead sampling in school program. So I just have a few slides to kind of generally go over what the requirement is. Not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the specifics of what's required, but kind of generally when it came about, what's required, when it's due, and kind of some of the resources that some of the commerce will be providing, and then some of the other financial or funding sources that are available down the road. So this is a good slide because it kind of shows you what we're ultimately after. So the whole part of this program is to identify lead service lines. So the big step right now is putting together these inventories. And a lot of times you're here referred to as a lead service line inventory, but really we have to inventory all your service lines. So whether it's lead or not, the service lines have to be inventoried. Next slide. So this inventory requirement comes out of the lead and copper rule revision. So that was published back in December of 21, and it had 3 years to implement. The main requirement in that revision was this requirement to do inventories. And the point again was to identify where the lead is in the system and then ultimately remove that down the road. So the lead and copper rule, it applies to all community systems and all non-transient, non-community systems. So those are like schools, commercial buildings, other facilities that have their own well or public water supplies. And this inventory has to be done regardless of ownership. So whether the individual water system owns all of the service line or not, they still have to inventory it. So they're not just inventorying the part they own. If they only own from the water main to the curb stop, they have to inventory the entire thing. So that's from basically the water main to the home or the building that it's connected to. Again, and the inventory is meant to be a living document. So the inventory itself is due October 16th of next year. And that's just the initial inventory. The purpose of this is that water systems will then have good understanding of what they have for service lines and be able to kind of manage that going forward. And the document and the inventory can be updated as new information is found. So it's not meant to be just a one-time submittal. And it's really the first kind of key requirement of the new lead and copper rule revisions. If systems aren't able to do their inventory, then they aren't able to do the new site sampling plans, potential replacement plans, compliance sampling. All of that is reliant on the inventory being completed. Next slide. So this is kind of how you get started with your inventory. So DEQ developed a whole bunch of tools to help water systems. We have guidance documents to explain how to do an inventory, what information to look for, what are different methods you can use to determine what that service line material is. We also have guidance on how to fill out the actual inventory template itself. We did develop state-specific templates for inventories. So there's one for community systems as well as as well as the NTNCs. And those are in an Excel-based template. And again, we have guidance documents to go over specifically how to fill that template out as well. And then we'll also have more guidance that's coming. So on funding options, the notification requirements under the new rule will have templates and forms based on that. And again, all this information is available on our website. It's also available on Commerce's website. And then ultimately this Commerce program will help systems get through all of this. It can be a daunting exercise, especially looking through old records and knowing what to look for, where the best place information are. Next slide. So this is just one of the other funding sources that came in. So through the bipartisan infrastructure law that Cody mentioned a few years ago, Congress allocated, I think it was 15 billion for lead service line removals across the country. Montana's allocation is about 28 million per year for the next 5 years, so about 140 million total. And that is based on us actually having projects. So, to get that 28 million, we have to demonstrate to EPA that we have $28 million worth of projects, meaning lead service line replacements, in order to apply for that funding. So it is a loan forgiveness program. I wish it was a pure grant program, but that's not how they structured it. So there is, it's structured the same way. If you're familiar with the State Revolving Fund or SRF process, it's the same process, just a different pot of money. It is a lower interest rate than normal SRF, so it is 1.5%. And there is a forgiveness. If a system qualifies for forgiveness, it's 60% forgiveness up to $2 million. And that may or may not change based year to year based on demand and available funds. And then to be eligible for that, you do have to fill out, you need a project, so you need to identify that you have lead service lines, or one of the other eligible projects I'll get into in a second. Basically fill that form out, you get put onto a priority list, and it basically kind of makes it available so you can then apply for funding down the road. And then that's how we're also covering the cost of the Department of Commerce's technical assistance program. So that comes out of this funding source. Next slide. And these are some of the eligible projects that you can use this replacement funding for. So it can cover complete removal of lead service lines, whether it's public or privately owned. And it's the complete removal. So it will not cover partial removals. So you have to remove the entire line, if it's all lead, from the water main to the home or to the building. And it's regardless of ownership. So the money can cover both private and publicly owned facilities. You can use it to remove all lead and galvanized goosenecks, pigtails, connectors. And that's the piece of pipe that usually connects the water main to the service line. And then anything else as part of that replacement project. So if you have to remove curb stops or curb boxes as part of the removal, you can replace it. And this money will cover the replacement of that, as well as site restoration. So if you did have to dig up a driveway or dig through somebody's yard or sidewalk, this funding can be used for restoration. It can also be used for picture filters or point of use devices that are used as part of a lead service line replacement in people's homes, planning, design, infrastructure projects, and then non-routine sampling as well. So as long as the sampling is not for the normal lead and copper compliance, this funding can be covered for that. And then if any questions, you can contact myself or George Williams or Matt Schmidt. They're our Those are our two lead and copper rule managers here in Montana. And I think that's it.
Right. Thank you, Greg. We are going to have Tina go ahead and talk to us about the application process. Then I'm going to go through the website. So Tina, if you want to go ahead, I will.
Okay.
Go here.
Thank you. So today we're going to go ahead and go through how to complete a lead service line application. And there may be several of you who have already completed an application. And if you have any questions, if your application has been received, please feel free to call or email me, and I will be more than glad to go through and verify that your application has been submitted. For those of you that have submitted an application, you will just click on the link or go to our landing page, and you're going to have an login to sign in. And as you can see here, an Okta login is required to access the LSL application. So we have a video tutorial, and we also have a PDF how to log in, instructions on how to log in. So you're going to click on request the lead service line help. And for this example, we're just going to go to our state login so we can go directly to the application. So once you've logged into Okta, you're going to receive this application form, and you're just going to go through it. You're going to fill in your public water system ID, your UEI, your unique entity ID. If you have it on file, great. If you don't, that is fine as well. You go through how many users does your system serve, your connections, including those connections that are currently not receiving water. How many service lines do you have remaining to inventory? So if you've already completed an inventory, let's say you have 1,000 system service connections and you've done some inventory and you're still pending to complete, let's say 500, you're going to enter that amount here of 500 pending. And then you're going to answer, does your water system serve primary users who are members of one of Montana's tribal nations? If so, you just click on the drop down and fill that out. And if it's located, yes or no. And if it's located within the boundaries, again, you're going to drop down and you'll just click on which tribal nation is served. Next, you'll fill out the city, town, and county associated with the service line. So for example, the city of Hanover or Hill County, that's what you would fill out, one or the other, whichever you're putting the application in for. Your mailing address. Please be sure to put in, if it's a PO box, to put in your city and your town, city, town, and state and zip code. And then you're going to put the primary contact. So if we have any questions, who is it that we will be reaching out to regarding any questions on your application, their phone number and their email. The following question, are you an incorporated city or town? Again, it's a drop down, yes or no. Are you a water sewer district? Drop down, yes or no. Would you be interested with an in-person training for your community? Again, we have listed yes, no, maybe. So if anybody needs any assistance from the lead service line team, just click yes, and we'll be reaching out to you to see what kind of assistance you need for in-person training, and we can go ahead and coordinate that with you. Would you like to receive a lead service line community educational toolkit? Yes, no, maybe. And Sue will have more information after this regarding the educational toolkit. Would you be interested in technical assistance to complete with your LSL inventory and plan, which the majority of people that are filling out an application require assistance with their lead service line plan. So more than likely, you're probably going to click yes. Do you have an engineer procured? If you do, please go ahead and fill it out. And or if you are a member of an economic development organization as well, you'll just go ahead and click that and fill it out. Once you have completed all the boxes, you're going to click on request, which is also submit. If you have not entered some information, you will still see it here in red, the missing information. So that concludes that part of the how to fill out an application. If you have any questions, we can go ahead and save that till the end. regarding the application. But again, if you have submitted an application and just want to find out if it has been received, just go ahead and call or email me, and I'll be more than happy to verify receipt of it. Now I'll pass this on to Sue so she can go over the community toolkit.
Great, thanks, Tina. So one of the things that we've really been working on is, and we'd love your feedback, so please feel free at the end to let us know your thoughts, or if there's additional components that we could put together for you for resources. So on our lead service line landing page, there is, like we just saw, the technical assistance application. We're also building out a community toolkit. A component of that will be printed materials that you can request, but we're also going to have most of them online so that you can customize them with your entity's contact information. We have on there digital assets that you can use for putting together a social media campaign. Our past training and recordings are on there, funding information, and a whole bunch more, because we're connected with DEQ's page. Updates are made simultaneously on a lot of this information regarding the lead and copper rule revision guidance, that type of thing. So each of these little accordions have a drop down. So like this first one here gives you the contacts at Commerce for lead service technical assistance program. And then also at DEQ, it has Greg's information there. So if you need to get a hold of us, please feel free to reach out either by email or phone. We're happy to take your questions. And this page is going to be changing just a little bit. Probably next time you get on, we're going to have maybe some blocks of photos that you can look at that will be a little bit more intuitive. We're in the process of that. So under here is the different inventory reporting templates. So if you want to take a look at what your community is going to be required to be reporting on, you can look at this template. That's also the template that your procured service provider, your PSP, if you're assigned one through the technical assistance program, they will be using these templates. So if you familiarize yourself with those, that will help you partner with them as they go into the process. So under this accordion is where we're starting to build out our lead service line education toolkit and our digital assets. So on here, we have some different things like a copy of the metals matrix that DEQ has. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. This is also going to be available as a magnet when you request your toolkits, or if you meet up with us at Montana League, we will have some, hopefully, by then, and also we'll be in Bozeman Water School on the 10th. So that's just kind of an example of some of the different assets. You can also print them out and use them at your own community meetings. So we're really encouraging our communities as you move forward with the education component and public meetings, that you really work with your citizens to help raise awareness and education as you're doing your inventory. And this kind of does a couple of things. If you do end up needing to go to someone's door and knock on their door, or you send them a postcard and they have this branding that they've seen on other items, they are more likely to be able to identify you as a legitimate inventory taker or a city worker or volunteer. So we also wanted to just make this super easy for you as a community to put out information regarding your community meetings and other outreach that you're doing about what we are doing to remove these lead pipes. So that all starts with the inventory. And so there's other states throughout the nation that already have inventories of all of their lines. Once this is done for Montana, it will be something that will be continued in perpetuity. So it's not like just a one and done. And that's why the EPA recognized that this is like a really heavy lift for a lot of communities, and provided the funding for technical assistance so that we can help you with the things like this, how to put together your community meetings, do some social media, and other promotions. So we have several different ones. We have some different images that you can use here. We met with the State Tribal Economic Development Council, and they chose some assets here. The great thing with this technical assistance program is it's across the state. It doesn't matter where you're located. 10,000 users and under is the threshold for this program. So across the state, we wanted you to have images that kind of represent maybe where you are, or like this one here, if you're talking about work starting within your communities, you know, one of these might be a really great one, because when people start seeing workers, they have questions. And so that can help you kind of facilitate that conversation. So down below here, you can see where you can download these images that are numbered across here. We also have a social media template on here that is a Word doc. Let's see if that's going to cooperate with us here. So you can see in the Word doc, and this might not be really big, it's going to give you several different options for social media, why you might use it, like if it's for public education, and then where you can just change that information out to represent your own community. And I'm going to show you in just a minute here how I use that to do a Facebook post. And we'll have more education about that. If there's communities that want a little more marketing assistance, we're happy to help you do that and brand these. So in here also, we have a sample news release. So if you're interested in putting in a news release to your local papers or agencies, your radio stations, then there's a fillable template there that you are welcome to use. We'll also be having quite a few other things on here in the near future, some door hangers that you could put on, postcards, that type of thing. The ones that you need larger quantities for, let us know, and we may be able to help you get those printed as you move forward. So if you request a toolkit from us to send to your community, you do that online. We're going to ask when your date is. We're going to have on here a template for hosting a community outreach meeting, what to do 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out, the week of, and the day of. So that you'll kind of have a checklist of how to best host a community meeting, and we can help you through that. Also on this page, you can see there's the updated lead and copper revision, the information that Cody was sharing earlier on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and other funding. These are important because if you get asked by some of your local media or even just your community to be able to have that information right at your fingertips, this is where you want to go. This section is really important because this is kind of why, right, behind what we're doing. And that is because of the health risks associated with lead. And that we know that it's toxic and it's harmful, and it can bioaccumulate in adults, women when they are expecting. It can be released into the fetus, so that there could be some ongoing effects on the fetus that is exposed to lead, specifically reducing growth, premature birth weight, and smaller statue size. It can affect kidney function and reproductive problems, and lots of other health effects are in here linked, so you can go on there and kind of familiarize yourself with those if you aren't already. Under this accordion is where you would go to, collapse this, to be able to see our past trainings. So if you would like to know a little bit more about the more technical side, we've done some that are pretty detailed, getting into that. This one here, the PSP introductory training, that was one we did for our service providers. So if you're interested in what they're going to be providing you, some of that information you can find in there if you want to watch that. And then below that, where we're going to be upcoming. So on October 10th, we'll be with DEQ at the water school in Bozeman, and we're presenting from 3 to 5 on the 10th. And then we'll be at Montana League of Cities and Towns the 11th through the 13th, and that is in Helena. So if you are around and get a chance to stop by our booth, please do that. We're hoping that we'll have a majority of the pieces of our toolkit ready for you then. And then this is where we also have some of our press media information. So if you have stories of your own community that get put on, please send them to us or share them on Facebook. And I'm going to show you kind of how you can hashtag those so that we will get notified, and kind of a fun little challenge that we're going to do. Down here is the information for the survey that Greg was talking about earlier. So if you were interested in applying to be on the intended use plan for the drinking water state revolving fund project, you need to fill out that survey, and that link is right there. So here we have, back to our screen that we started off of. You can see you could get to our page through our CTAP and then go to lead service lines. We've also made a tiny URL. So it's just tinyurl.com/LSL406. And then we have a couple of hashtags that we use. The main one is the hashtag Get the Lead Out 406. And when you hashtag your social post, we're able to look at those and be able to share them onto our page and just kind of collect those stories as we go through this historical process. So I just wanted to show this with you, share this with you. So like, we want you to have fun with this, and really you can do some really great collaborations with us, with DEQ, with other communities. So I simply went into the lead service line landing page where we just were, and I opened the lead service line community education toolkit, went into the digital assets, and then step 2, I downloaded the social media asset that I thought best went with this, and that was the workers. They're right here. And then I went and I opened the template for the social media template, and I selected this copy here that says join us. So obviously this is like an invitation one, and I like kind of the feel of that. So I just simply copied that out of that Word document, posted it right in my post, changed the information. So this now represents your community. So I have join us, drinking water systems across the country must complete a service line inventory by October 16, 2024 to identify if lead service lines are present. And I used Haber, is working with the at Montana Department of Commerce and at Montana Department of Environmental Quality. So if you do that, it's going to kind of cross post over onto our social media. It'll get looked at by our comms and then accepted. If it's acceptable, it will then get posted on our social media as well. You can also take those out if you don't want those in there. All of this is editable. You can change it. You can add to it. And then we say that we are partnering to ensure eligible water systems like ours receive support to complete these activities. Contact, and then I put in Haber Public Works Department. You can put in whatever your contact needs to be at this number for more information. So then I added these hashtags, and then you just go ahead and click post. So the challenge, if you wanted to add hashtag 406 LSL Community Challenge, would like for you to upload photos of your community. It could be in meetings, it could be doing door-to-door inventory surveys, it could be if you're doing any street work, and post them on your social media and just add the hashtag 406 LSL Community Challenge. And then each month we're going to be doing kind of a fun little contest with that. So that's like to be announced. So we really want to open this up for questions and comments. I'm going to stop sharing here in just 1 second and check the chat. But before I do, I'd like you all to take a second to answer this question for us. So in the chat, and you can just use the number 1, 2, or 3, what topic would you like to have presented next month? So using the community toolkit to plan outreach and create personalized assets, funding sources for lead service line construction projects, or how to complete the DEQ lead service line template. So if you can take a moment to go in and answer what you would like to see next, we will get set up here so that I can see the chat to take some questions. There. Cody, now we can see you too. So in the chat, and if you have a question, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you as well. Would love to hear your voices. So Trevor says the chat is disabled. It should be.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Your chat's disabled, so you can't give any responses unless you throw them into the question and answer thing.
Gotcha. So go ahead and throw them in the question and answer thing, and maybe I will see why the chat isn't. Honestly, I'm a Teams girl. I use it a lot more than I do the Zoom. But yeah, if you want to just throw it in the question and answer, we'll follow that. And then if you want to raise your hand, thank you, Thomas, for pointing that out. If you have a question.
Would you give those give those choices again? Because I was busy trying to make it work while you were doing that. Sorry.
For sure. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll have to see because this is like, is it taking edits? So the three choices are: number one is some help with going through the community assets, how to build social media posts, and some of the other, like the door hangers and the postcards and that type of thing. So how to help do some community outreach and meetings in your community. That was number one. Number two, let's see if I can remember. I think it's funding. Am I right? And number three is more information on how to complete the lead service line template. Was I right? Tina will correct me if I'm wrong. Does that help, Thomas?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Lori has a question. She says, I've applied for assistance for some of the water systems and she received an email confirming. Who do I contact now to move forward with location of lead lines? So thank you, Lori. That's a great question. We are just finishing up contracting with our service providers. And as soon as we do, we'll be going through those applications and you will receive another email that will say who your service provider is that's been assigned to work with you and their contact information, and then you can move forward with that. Does that answer your question? Guess we're going to zoom. Yes. Let's see. We got some twos. We got a couple threes. If anyone knows how to disable chat, let me know, or enable chat, and I'll if you get an extra bonus.
They have to, for the Zoom, they have to raise their hand and then we can go ahead and disable it.
Gotcha. It's individual. Good answer. Not the one I wanted, but good answer. So let's see if we have any others.
There is a way to unmute or to undo that for everybody. I don't know what version of Zoom you have, but there is a way to turn it off for everybody, but you can do it individually as well.
I think they did have it turned off because we're recording. Thank you, Thomas. So do we have any other questions? Greg or Cody, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just thank you everyone for taking the time to jump on, and we're excited to get going.
Yeah, we are. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us. We hope that as we go through the next year, because we have just about exactly a year until these are all due, that we can really help you with, sorry. I think you're unable to, go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, I can talk faster than I can type, sorry.
Me too.
We've done about 90% of our service lines from the curb stop into the house. And we know even before we started that we don't have any lead lines. But as I was going through that service, when he started talking about service lines, what I'm not sure of doing that ginormous spreadsheet thing, if they're actually wanting, if something in there is actually pointing us to the main feed lines, or whether that's on another form or whether. That's documented elsewhere. You talk about service lines, and to me, service lines are different than feed lines. But then as I read through some of the notes on that, I'm not as clear on what I thought I knew about it as I was when I started.
Well, I'll let Greg see if he wants to tackle that one.
Sure. So, and I don't know exactly what the terminology like with a feed line. So do you mean like the water main in the road?
Water main, yeah, water
Yeah.
main.
So water mains aren't referenced in the lead and copper rule. So EPA isn't looking at them right now. So this exercise is really just looking, from the connection to the water, like the service line. So the line going from the water main to the home.
Okay.
I know I've got a lot of questions about the water main. They might have lead poured joints or other things in the water mains themselves. But at this point, EPA hasn't. We have no direction on that, and they're not referenced anywhere. So they're not. That's why it wasn't included in the inventory itself.
I was just trying to figure out, because we know what we have, but I was trying to, as I read it, the more I read, the less I understood about what I thought I knew. So,
I like that. The more I read, the less I understood about what I thought I knew.
so that helps me tremendously with what we're trying to do then. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, Trevor put on that's been some confusion for Haver. Is the roll current funding to remove lead service line from the main through the curb stop until the meter in the home, or just to the curb stop? And I'm going to take a stab at this, and then Greg can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But the funding allows you to go all the way to the home past the curb stop, including replacement of the curb and the sidewalk and grass, landscaping that's maybe has to be interrupted with the removal of those lines. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, and the funding would only be given if it was a full replacement, so all the way to the home. The only exception is if a system has already done a partial, so they removed maybe the main to the curb stop that was lead years ago, but there's still that portion from the curb stop to the home. At that point, you could use it for partial, but in all other circumstances, the funding would only be used for full replacements.
Trevor says thank you. So hopefully that answered. Thank you, Trevor. That was a great question. Any other questions while we're here? We're excited to get this program going and see all the great work. We really hope you share some pictures with us and we can have some fun. And we're planning to be doing some traveling around. So we'd love to be able to know when your community meetings are, and maybe we can come and visit with you and bring you some donuts or something when we come. So unless we have any other additional questions that we want to add on here, we will give you back the rest of your Thursday afternoon. Our next, yes, Tina.
I'll interrupt you. There's a question from Bob Lee.
Oh, I see that just popped up. Bob says we have a small community water system of 28 homes. We do not have anyone qualified in the community to do these surveys. Can we get help with that? Is there a penalty for non-compliance? So first of all, Bob, that is what the technical assistance is exactly for. So if you're qualified, a non-transient public community water system of over, I think, is it 16, Greg?
15.
15. I was close. Then yes, that is what this program is for. So please, log into that and fill out that application, and would love to get you hooked up with a service provider to help you work through your inventory. Trevor is asking, will there be future funding after the 2024 MSTEP CDBG and other grants? You're welcome, Bob. There is several different funding sources, but the revolving loan is going to be the next 4 years, Greg, depending on the amount of projects that we put in each year that show that we have the projects that need the funding. We can be awarded by the federal government.
Yes, currently we've been awarded 1 year, but we have 4 additional years that we can get that award of 28 million. So it'll be through 26 as of right now.
Yeah, so that's why it's really important to go ahead and fill out that request if you have an idea of what it's going to be, so that we can make sure that we have a full request going into EPA each year to be able to do those loans. Let's see. Trevor says, thank you. Yeah, they're in phase 1 in design. So some of you may find that some of your ARPA water projects contain components that may include removal of lead lines. And so you'll want to talk with your ARPA manager about that, or you can call us individually, and we can help you see what that would look like to be able to partner some of this low interest loan if you need that to build onto your ARPA funds or other funding that you already have in place. Thomas?
Yeah, I opened up the, can you still hear me okay?
Uh-huh, yeah.
What I did is I opened up the survey because there was a couple of things. The building plumbing material, if we don't, some of it we know, some of it we don't. How critical is it that we start asking people what kind of plumbing they have inside of their house at this point?
So the plumbing part of that survey, we included that because you'll need that to create your new site sampling plan down the road. So in 2025, the new sampling plans will kick in. EPA is changing the tiering criteria. So currently for lead and copper sampling, there's 3 different tiers of sampling. It's going to move to 5 different tiers.
Okay.
And a lot of that's
Right.
heavily dependent on the materials in the home, which are hard to, you have to ask the homeowner, unfortunately.
Yep. Okay. That's, yeah, because what I can do is I can have the first, well, we're just about to have the first part done. I mean, from the curb stop to the house. And then there'll be some research on data build on service line to the curb or main to the service or curb stop. But that was one that threw me when I saw that. Okay. That makes sense now.
Thomas,
Okay,
yeah, there's some really good information on there that Greg put together on that template, kind of some step-by-step going through the template. But if it looks like we'll be doing a training, that was one of the most popular choices, and we'll go through that extensively. And it's really helpful when we do that. I know that the drop downs and the auto populates kind of calculates for some of those, how that line needs to be categorized depending on what's been there historically. Trevor had asked if that 28 million was over 4 years. That is available per year. It can be requested by DEQ from EPA if we have enough qualified projects. Let's see. You're welcome, Trevor. Do we have any other questions? This is great. Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to be able to kind of get moving on this. I'm sure as you start digging in, you're going to have more questions, and we look forward each month to being able to meet with this group and hearing about your projects. Hearing your questions helps us also know what else we need to be putting together for our communities to help them do their community education and outreach. So let us know if you need any extra printed materials or templates, any of that type of thing. We're happy to be able to produce some of that for you.
This is Tom, if I can still hear me. There was one suggestion I'd make. When you have the drop down for how did you determine service line material? What we're doing is field inspection with records. So that wasn't an option. Or we're doing a field inspection and then verifying the date as well. So
okay, yeah, I'll let Greg go ahead and answer that. He has his hand up. Greg, are you not unmuted?
Oh, there you go. I got blocked. Yeah, I think there's an other field. When we were developing that template and we tried to make it as simple as we could, obviously it doesn't look that way, but uh, we had set it up for the reason because that template then goes into our GIS database. So we had to use pre-populated fields. And
Got it.
unfortunately, I couldn't put every scenario in, or just be it'd be too big. So I guess I would suggest if there's an other, you can click on other, and then there's 2 comment fields that you can use to enter information in.
Okay, and that was what I was trying to figure out, because I can put a comment right after other, but I think if I do that, it'll blow up your database sorting.
It should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said there were 2 other text fields. Are those
There
in
should
other
be 2
blocks?
columns that were for comments. I don't have it open right in front of me, but either one of those comment fields, you can add in more information that's, you can actually type in information. All the other fields
Okay.
generally are drop down.
Yeah, because if you start trying to do stuff in that field, it tells you you don't match the data restrictions defined for the cell, and it
Yes.
gets really crabby.
Yep.
So, so I'll just put that in general comments then, because that's at least in the one that I have, I only have the 1 column for general comments.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. That's very helpful, because I want to say as true things as possible when I'm doing this.
And we wanted to make this a document that systems could use and keep as an inventory too. But it was a fine line of how many rows we add and how big we make this thing. So
yeah,
it's not perfect.
There's a law of diminishing returns on that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. That helps.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Greg. Last call. We got 3 minutes here. Tina, did I miss anyone in the chat?
No, so far you've got everybody.
I think we didn't answer Bob's question of, is there a penalty for non-compliance? Greg, I'll let you answer that, but yeah, I was gonna say, but if we get you some TA, let's hope you're not gonna have to find out, right?
Yeah. It'd be like any other requirement that's not completed, so it'd be a violation. Just one other thing taken into account or take in mind is state of Montana won't have primacy by then. So meaning we wouldn't be able to issue the violation. So it wouldn't be a violation from DEQ, it'd be a violation from EPA.
All right, thank you for that question, Bob. That was a good question. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions and Cody and Greg and Tina don't have anything they'd like to share additionally, I think we'll go ahead and we'll close this out. This recording will be posted in the next couple of days, so please feel free to go back on there and look through that. And then also give us any feedback, send us an email or give us a call and let us know what else we can do to help you as we move forward with this program. So thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.